We believe that the heart of a man is a treasure trove of untold stories, powerful lessons, and profound wisdom. Through authentic dialogues and insightful discussions, we aim to unlock these treasures, one story at a time. So, whether you're seeking guidance, inspiration, or simply a moment of reflection, you're in the right place. Get ready to be challenged, inspired, and transformed. And now, to guide you through this journey of discovery, please welcome your host, a visionary leader and a true catalyst for change, Dwayne Dwyer, but we affectionately know him as the Mindset Coach.
Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of the Hearts of Men podcast. We're your host of tonight's conversation. My name is Dwayne Dwyer, go by the Mindset Coach, and I am joined by my brother, the son of Timothy, otherwise known as the Available Man, no other than Mr. Tawai McGaddy himself. Brother, how you doing on this beautiful Friday evening?
Man, I'm good. Like I said, it was a long week, but even those long weeks got a light at the tunnel, and that light is being able to sit here with the livest chat with my big bro, have these conversations that hopefully impact something, man. So, and I know it will. I'm ready for this.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I had a pretty awesome week, busy but awesome at the same time. But like you said, man, one of the highlights of my week every week is being able to be here and have conversation, sharing conversation with you, the brothers on the panel, and like you said, the livest chat in social media. So that being said, if you are with us tonight, by all means, make sure that you get in the comment section and say hello, because we want to make sure that we give you your flowers now, because we appreciate you being here. You can be anyplace else, but you chose to be here with us on this Friday evening. We do not take that lightly. So that being said, good evening and welcome to the show, The Rebirth of Nick, Miss Robin Brower, Crystal Everett, Miss Charlotte Jordan. As always, it's an honor and a pleasure to see you. His Divine Appointment, good to see you. Welcome. Get better soon. Lisa Keys, good to see you. Welcome. Quiet Storm, good to see you. Welcome. Yes, it's Maya. Good to see you and welcome. And anybody else who's out there, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram, again, just let us know that you're here so that we can recognize your presence. For real quick, for those of us in the community, we have a community meeting tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, I owe you guys a link that will come out tonight after the show. So that being said, we can have our quarterly meeting. It should be quick. Crystal's going to host it. And I get to lay in the back and listen to her chastise me. Any other comments you want to bring up, brother, before we get started? No? Okay, very well. Let's go ahead and get this party started there. Sometimes the hardest truth to face isn't the pain we've caused others, but the pain we've kept ourselves from feeling. Many men walk through life armored, silent, guarded, unreachable, believing that distance is strength. We inherit this idea from past wounds, old lessons, and expectations that reward stoicism over vulnerability. Over time, that armor becomes a home and a prison. But emotional unavailability doesn't just shape how we love, it shapes how we connect, how we communicate, and how we show up, both for others and for ourselves. And for many of us, it's a pattern we didn't even realize we were repeating. Today's episode isn't about blame, it's about recognition and an honest look at the quiet ways we shut down, pull back, or disappear emotionally, even when we desperately want to stay. Stay with us until the end of this episode. We're going to share some insights that may be uncomfortably eye-opening, deeply clarifying, and for many listeners, alarmingly revealing. This conversation might feel like holding up a mirror, one that shows you not just who you've been, but who you still might have the chance to become. So let's dig in. So as you guys see, we already mentioned we're talking about emotional unavailability. And what I want you guys to do is to kind of answer the poll. Again, 1 for yes and 2 for no. And the poll is, have you ever referred to or believed a man to be emotionally unavailable? I say again, have you ever referred to or believed a man to be emotionally unavailable? One for yes and two for no. And Brother Gaddy, as we get ready to dive in, I just kind of want to put out some revealing questions because we're going to kind of lay our cards on the table before we get into it, right? In your opinion, what is the biggest concern that takes place when men and women, when we start discussing emotions?
From my opinion, it first thing would be the concern of whether or not anything's going to be accomplished through this dialogue. Um, I honestly believe men and women, without these conversations, without it just flying from my hips, we play by different rules when it comes to tough conversations and emotional conversations, because naturally I want to have a conversation because I want results for something. And sometimes, and I don't want to speak for women, but it can feel from the male perspective. Sometimes it feels like we're being argued with for the win. We're not. I don't believe that we're trying to win, but I feel like I'm gonna go too deep into the conversation if I keep
Sure.
going.
Well, before I let you go too fast, um, I think you said something along the lines, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I got to paraphrase. I don't remember it exactly. It's almost as though you said we have two different standards or two different rules. Was it something like that?
Yeah.
Can you kind of clarify that just a little bit? 'Cause I want to make sure that not only me, but everybody who is listening understand exactly what you're saying.
So the first reality when it comes to having, you know, tough conversations, or however you want to phrase them, tough conversation, arguments, or discussions. Socially, there are different levels of expectations, right? Women are, and once again, we're speaking from male perspective. So correct me in the chat, women, if this is not how you see it. But women are typically allowed to go a little further. All right. So when it gets to the disrespectful level, we tend to be like, you got it, because if I go as deep as you, it's not as acceptable. As a man, I'm supposed to be able to handle those blows and take them and just keep on trucking. And so that's what I mean. Like, so there's just different rules of how we can engage. All right. Um, you have, and I'm from my experience, I've seen women be like, "Don't talk to me like this." Why they talking to you all crazy, saying some of the worst things that they could think of. To, but it's as if they're fighting to win. But I feel, once again, trying not to go all the way there, but I don't feel like when I'm arguing, I'm not arguing or going combative trying to win an argument. When it gets heated, it's typically because we feel like it's going nowhere, and we're just sending ad hominem attacks at each other.
Yeah, I like that. Um, I think for me, as I think into this question, I think the biggest concern that takes place is that one understands it completely and one doesn't understand it at all. So it's almost like an emotional intellect versus an emotional ignorance. And just simply because, you express yourself in one manner, you believe that I have a responsibility to match that exact same energy, the exact same way that you do it. And I think part of that is that when you really stop and think about it, there is no formal education, no formal training in your younger years as it pertains to what emotions are and what they're actually for. So you end up leaning into the preponderance of information that you get as it pertains to the thing. And on one hand, I was taught to don't cry, shut up, and brush the dirt off, never let them see you sweat, all those different things. Those things became a foundational understanding of emotions for me. But then on the other hand, you were taught something totally different. So now you have the polar opposites of emotional understanding trying to come together and have a conversation about emotions, and yet the end result is no understanding whatsoever. And to your point, that's where we end up going to. We end up going to the argumentative standpoint, to my version of what I understand emotions to be versus your version of what you understand emotions to be, not necessarily considering or even rationalizing within yourself that maybe there might be some type of happy medium in between. So now we are at a stalemate. It's like playing chess and somebody has to win, like you just said. So I kind of want to throw a second question at you because I love where you're going with this and I don't disagree. And you guys keep giving your responses in the comment section because I want to bring those up as well because I think all of that adds to what we're saying. And so the next question here is at what age did you realize that emotions were a thing? And what did you realize at that point? And the second part, the last part of it, what did you realize at that point about them?
You know, I can't really pinpoint an age, but I remember I didn't know how to express it. But when I started seeing other people, when my grandmother passed, I remember actually feeling something, not knowing what I was feeling until to her funeral, and I was really really young. Until her funeral, and I saw other people cry. I saw my father get slightly emotional. He ain't cry in front of us for real, but you saw the emotion, and so the awareness of feelings at another level. Like adults have these things too, you know.
Mhm.
It's not just me being told to shut up and quit crying,
Mm.
you know, to go do this and shut up about it, you know how it was in the PG versions of what was said, but I the realization that everyone had them, and that struck me as a child. But that's a as far as that initial remembrance of feelings, that's as far as I can remember it.
You remember a lot more than I do. I can't tell you what age it was for me. Um, I can't even tell you when I was enlightened specifically, like a pinpoint age. Um, but it was almost like a whirlwind of information that I started diving into as it pertains to it. Now, feelings, yes. I always knew feelings were a thing, even back in my younger years, but emotions, not so much. And I see some people say that they were in this age or whatever the case may be. I can't pinpoint a particular age when I understood that emotions were a thing, not to such a degree that it became a thing to where it like made a big difference in my life. But I do know that the lack of that understanding caused some problems. That's just kind of like how I see it. It caused some problems, it caused some concerns. And because I did not have an understanding, and maybe my ex wife at that time felt she did have an understanding, and I didn't necessarily agree with her understanding of that thing, that by itself kind of created more problems. So it just kind of exacerbated the problems that already existed. So I wanted to kind of like get after that because I think for the most part, the same way that you being, from New York, me being like, I don't know, from Georgia, like that big distance between us, it's not by happenstance or do we have very similar experiences when it comes down to understanding emotions as men because I think most men fall in that category. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for everyone who is sharing as well. I kind of want to bring up some things real quick. First and foremost, Robin, she mentioned that men and women, she said I'm sorry, they are wired different emotionally. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. So thank you for saying that. Miss Charlotte Jordan said that women have been taught it's okay to be emotional, where men are taught the opposite. And that's exactly what I was saying previously.
Mhm.
Atlas at Lisa Keys. Atlas at Keys the Key Realty said I learned emotions were a thing in my 30s. So I think even just with that little bit of information now, I don't think we can just take a blanket and put over one group of people and a blanket to put on another,
Right.
because
Right.
this is a woman that's saying this, right? So
Right.
she said she learned that they were a thing in her 30s. So I love that. Robin said hers was 10 to 14 plus years old. Thank you. Maya said as a child, as a child, I got different feedback from different sides. If you cry, I would give you something to cry for. Me too. I got that too. I'm sorry. I'll give you something to cry for from one side, and hugs being told to express myself from the other side of the family. Yeah. And I get it. I do. I don't know.
I don't get that one. I ain't never got the hugs part.
Well, I think, I'm assuming that both of her parents were together, and maybe mom. Well, I don't know. She's a girl, so maybe mom was the one to say, "I give you something to cry for," and daddy was the one what to hug the kids. I don't
That's
know.
what I'm thinking too.
I'm assuming. I'm guessing. But Maya, if you don't mind, clear up my assumption because I don't 100% know. But I do know that men have a soft spot for their daughters, so that's just kind of like how I see it. Okay, so she still agrees.
Right. She
Right.
said right. Yeah.
So thank you guys. Let's look at the results of this poll real quick, because I think this is revealing within itself. So we're gonna stop it, and then we're gonna show it. Alarming: 100% of all of the people who participated in the poll said that at one point in time they referred or believed the man to be emotionally unavailable. And thank you for that. That's so for every young man that's out there observing this, this should be an eye-opening experience for them. Because if you ever been in a situation to where you were referred to as emotionally unavailable, it's not just you, right? It's other men out there who were believed to be emotionally unavailable as well. So thank you guys for that level of honesty. So let's kind of dive into this, man, because we're about to get after it. Talking point number one: the male emotional processing is different, not deficient. Men don't lack emotional capacity. They process emotions different through neural pathways that prioritize action-oriented problem solving over immediate verbal articulation. And this difference is neurobiological, not pathological. Men are not broken. Men are not broken versions of women. They're different versions of human. And those differences are neurobiological, not deficiencies, said Dr. Luann Brizenden. I probably said that wrong. Research published in Nature Neuroscience in 2024 reveals that men's emotional processing engages the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is the problem-solving region, 37% more frequently during emotional experiences than women, explaining the fix-it response rather than the talk about it response. Sexual dimorphism in neural architecture is explained as this: testosterone exposure during fetal development and puberty shapes brain structure, creating legitimate biological differences in emotional processing pathways. These differences are adaptive responses to evolutionary pressures, not modern dysfunctions. So, Brother Gad, I'm gonna ask you a question, man, and I want you to kind of just flow with me for a second. I want you to think about a time when someone demanded you to open up immediately during an emotional moment. What was actually happening, if you could recall, in your mind and body during this particular pressure?
Mm. Well, I would say one of the most recent ones I could remember was actually at home. And now that I'm thinking about that, I'm starting to think about more. But since that one I'm already talking about, that one was in house, right? More recent, and it was during a discussion, and it's like, hey, you know, one side is like, we got to be emotional, and I'm like, no, we need to fix issues so that we can create change versus just sitting around here in our feelings for no reason. You know, not for no reason, because I understand everybody has feelings and everyone has emotions. All right, now how do we fix what the problem is? You know, the problem is, I said, I get, and I'm focused on I get both of us want these outcomes. How do we coexist? How do we make this cohabitation work until we get on the right track? And the other side was about, I need you to feel more. I need you to express. No, I feel good. I don't have a problem feeling. I have a problem living based upon what I feel. And so I was in a headspace of like, we're going nowhere, trying to get emotions out versus trying to fix whatever issue we having. That, to me, that's my most recent one. But yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for that. It's not a easy one because I mean, if you've been married, men, if you've been married, you may have multiple examples of this, right? But anything, and I'll give you a perfect example in a second. Anything that she felt attached to, like, and I give you an example of me eating lunch, right? I was in the army, for those of you who didn't know. And at my pay grade, I was the only person in the entire squadron, and I worked in the staff. So that being said, it was not one of those things where I could just pick up and leave just like anybody else, right? So if you see one of my friends who may just happen to be able to do it, that's them. That has nothing to do with me. Their requirements were different than mine. And so she was adamant about that, very determined. And, she's like, you just don't understand, and blah, 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 blah. And, it became an emotional moment. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, rules are rules, right? These are things that are set in stone. I just can't just pick up and leave and be where you want me to be just simply because that's what you want, right? It's not that I'm not hearing what you want, it just doesn't work that way. And you can get as emotional about it all you want, but that does not change my reality. I get it. And so just in that moment, it was almost like now I'm dealing with the pressures of the reality that I have to deal with as far as my job. And you got for those of you who understand the army, when you work in the staff, you have the ops sergeant major who's responsible for the staff, the ops sergeant major and the three, they're responsible for the staff. Then you have the XO, right? And then you have the commander and so forth and so on, and the squadron sergeant major. So these are the people in essence that can be looking for you at any given point in time, right? And so just because, now don't get me wrong, every now and then I could, but as often as you was like, absolutely, as she would like, absolutely not. So now I'm stuck in between the pressures of what I know I have to do job wise and what she wants me to do. And so, in the midst of hearing what she is saying, it's not that I'm not hearing her, but I'm also weighing the options of what she is saying versus what it is I'm responsible for doing. And now I'm in a space to where, like, how can I do both? Is it possible for me to do both? And if it's not possible for me to do both, I'm I got to tell you now that I can't do both. But then the second part of it is that now I got to deal with the response of the fact that I can't do both. Then a lot of us, because we don't necessarily want the response, because we already see the emotional expression that is happening simply during conversation, we'll give you something like, well, I'll see what I can do. Which means at that point, let's put this on the shelf and we'll talk about it later. I didn't tell you I'm gonna do it. I'm just saying, let me see what I can do. That's it. I hate this. I hate to be that honest in this regard. And some man out there said, man, you done gave the tea. I did. I had to, bro, because if they don't know that you are pressuring someone to do something simply because that's what you want them to do, not necessarily considering anything else. And oh yeah, by the way, she worked at the school that my kids go to. So now you see how this is no sacrifice on her behalf, 100% sacrifice, potential discomfort, so forth and so on, for me in order to appease what she wants. Go ahead, bro.
Can I be? I want to be real frank, and this might, I don't, if it causes some friction, I'm sorry, in advance. But men and women aren't allowed to. I know we talked about it in conversation, but it's true in different avenues, and people can believe it or not. But men and women are allowed different things on the job, right? Let's just keep it a buck. Some first class Dwyer say, "Hey man, my wife wants to eat lunch, and I gotta. I'm gonna go step out, have lunch with the wife, blah blah blah." Male senior, gonna look, or any senior, I think, is gonna look at him and say, "Hey son, that's cool, but I still need what I need when I need it. So manage manage your time properly. You're not a private no more. You're a senior non-commissioned, and whether they say that or not, they're gonna think you're a senior non-commissioned officer. I still have a deadline, and I'm not changing that because you want to go eat, right? That's how they're gonna think. But I've seen, and I wouldn't, even as a civilian, I see it to where women are allowed to even express it loudly and be like, I don't care. This is my life. I'm taking this time. You're not gonna blah blah blah. You're gonna get what you're gonna get when you're gonna get it. And people get mad, but for some reason, a lot of people, especially male leaders, will not respond back to females. So a lot of times when women be like, you better take your lunch, it doesn't play out the same way for both of us. And we know that. We've expressed it, we see it, and we hear leaders when how they respond back, especially if you work at battalion staff. You hear how the leaders respond to different people. And so you're really asking me to jeopardize the future of what I'm doing. And you're not looking, that's the way that we're looking at it. So you're asking me to not move forward and doing what I'm supposed to do, knowing that my name is attached to what I do. This is how I continue to provide for you. I'm not going out here because I want to be the biggest guy on campus. I'm going to go out here because I want to make sure back at home you got what you need from me. And if I slip on that, now you're gonna look at me like, what kind of man can provide? What kind of man can't pay the bills? What kind of man can't? Well, I could have if if I'd have hung in there and done what I knew was right. So you're not just pressuring me to do what you want me to do. You're pressuring me to jeopardize everything that I'm trying to build so that I can continue to take care of home. But
No, you're right where we're going because you're absolutely right. And as people hear this, like I know somebody might be thinking, well, that's not like that where I work at. Congratulations, you have leadership that actually understand what leadership is all about. But I do believe, and I haven't talked about this in years, but I really do believe it because I've seen it that there are, especially if the male is a supervisor, there are certain things that they just don't want to jump into because out of fear of the repercussions of whatever, right? So this person may be allowed a little bit more leeway than this person, and it might be because of a gender difference. Now, is that right? Absolutely not. Is that a leadership problem? Absolutely, right? Because at the end of the day, if that person have those particular hangups, they should not be leading anybody. They should still be in a position to where they're following a leader who actually understands leadership. But make no mistake about it, it still exists. And until people understand that and then become consciously aware, and it takes an individual maybe on the outside to bring it to the attention of those people in leadership positions. But trust and believe it does happen. But Gaddy, what you said is exactly where I wanted to go because that's one scenario. And if you paid attention, I said it happens multiple times, right? What happens, moving forward after this scenario or the next scenario or whatever the case may be? Like, how does that actually affect you? Like when you look at the next point, like did or how did that demand affect your ability to eventually share what you were actually feeling?
to be honest with you, when I'm asked on the spot, share your feelings, it's almost as if that ability to share that feeling shuts down because there's no processing time. There's no thought. What are the because to be honest with you, I believe, at least for me, I'm not gonna say for all males or not for all females, maybe for but how you express your emotions will it affects you going forward, right? I think men we believe that we're playing chess, right? If I get out here and I'm just all in my emotions and I start because you want me to express myself, you want me to cry, you want me to I do this. Now how do you see me when I walk into the house? They go that like to cry. Little whiny,
Yes.
I'm joking, but I'm not, right? But and you may not say that out loud, but I do believe when men are hyper emotional all the time, right? The way that they're viewed, especially at home, and in the workspace is different. So I so for me when it's like on the spot, express your feelings, it's like an immediately shut down. I can't not right now because I didn't lay. There's a cost to doing that. Just is what it is.
Yeah. I want you guys to kind of like imagine. Um And women, I want you to imagine as well. I don't want you to imagine in a relationship. I want you to kind of like imagine yourself in a situation, i.e., let's just say a work situation, and your supervisor is an emotional being. And every time something goes wrong, your supervisor responds from the seat of their emotions, not from the seat of their observation, i.e., turn to analysis to create solution. So now you have an emotionally based supervisor. And because you're not doing things the way that they want you to do it, I'm not talking about the results. I'm talking about the actual task. You're not doing the task the way they want you to do it, then they always respond with an emotion, and you can see it. Not only can you see it, everybody in the office can feel it. So now, that being said, everybody, when they come to work, they're on pins and needles. They're literally walking on eggshells because they don't want to tick off the supervisor. It's kind of like what that's like, right? When presented with a situation to where either you're demanding me to tap into my emotions or you're responding to me emotionally, and now I have to figure out the balance between, hearing everything that you're saying, not just what you're saying, but how you're saying it and where you're saying it from, and dealing with the reality of the thing and doing the actual on-site analysis in my head while you're talking so that I can problem solve and come up with the best solution for the both of us in that moment. Well, it almost put a person at a heightened sense of alert. It's almost like having PTSD in a relationship. So now, from that standpoint, you do not want to do a thing to strike the emotional chord. So now the emotional chord becomes a part of your decision making routine. Is that a relationship? That's a very interesting standpoint to have when it comes down to this thing where we're supposed to be one. I am more worried about your emotions than I am worried about the reality of the situation and the betterment of this entire unit as a family. And I think that's the issue that, and I can't speak for everybody else. And Gaddy, I'm surely not trying to speak for you, but that's the issue I dealt with. That's the space that I was in, trying to do a balancing act between reality and the emotional response. Even though sometimes what she wanted me to do had absolutely nothing to do with the best outcome for the family.
I
So
100% agree.
very well, very well. Okay, let's grab some of these comments real quick before we move on. I want to go
Yeah.
back to what Miss Charlotte Jordan said because I love the fact that she said it. Because again, we sometimes have information in the silo, but when you see a woman, now, granted, she's a different generation than some people who are listening, but to see this is eye-opening because she said she wasn't allowed to express her emotions. I was never told I was loved, nor did any family member show love, not even to one another. I can relate wholeheartedly to that, 100%. So thank you so much for that, Miss Charlotte Jordan. Um,
I definitely think that's a generational. Yeah.
yeah,
'Cause
yeah,
my father was that stoic generation.
yeah, yeah. So Atlas at Keys to Key Realty. She said, attitude, unpacking, and understand are all happening at the same time. Trying to understand. Yes, I would say I don't think we really got understanding. I think we were trying to understand, and that's part of the issue. And to your later point, yes, I wouldn't say it's situational. I'm sorry, I get there in a second. I wouldn't say it's situational. Definitely dependent upon the individual, right? Because she said this is situational, though not the whole species. Sure, not the whole species, but I also believe that we need to understand these things as it's presented as well. So we're not saying everybody's like this, not at all. We're not saying every man is like this, and we're definitely not saying every woman is like this. But if a thing is a systemic problem, I think it's important for us to talk about it as well.
Right.
The second part of what she said, a few things at the same time. I am listening to understand why there is pressure, what is being said, and why what makes you think I must do anything because you want me to. Absolutely, absolutely. The rebirth of Nick D said, my response was to completely shut down, pretty much avoidance. So thank you for that. Let's see. I'm gonna grab some because I didn't highlight them. She said also, yes, the fear of consequences could be a concern in how leadership lead and how leadership leads. Absolutely. If we previously discussed that he needs time to process, I would respect that and come back to it when he is ready. That's a very interesting take. Very interesting take. And I would love to discuss that a little bit later. Let's see. There was one I was looking for. If one is placing a demand on you to respond that is considered undue pressure, I don't think anyone can be productive in that environment. I don't disagree. Um, Miss Charlotte Jordan said having them walk around tiptoeing so you don't trigger them. Yep, absolutely. Hey, Stephanie. She said, I just had that happen to me a couple of weeks ago, but I recognize the emotions were the problem, and I cast out positive energy to control the emotions. Yeah, that's a whole nother ball of wax. Thank you for sharing that. Good to see you as well. Maya says one should not be operating in hypervigilance in an environment where you're not in danger. I agree. I agree. Thank you all for your comments as well, because you guys are hitting home runs. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. All statements and all questions. Let's move on to talking point number 2. Hormonal influence on emotional expression. Testosterone doesn't eliminate emotions. It fundamentally alters how emotions are experienced, regulated, and expressed, creating a biological basis for action-oriented emotional processes that mainstream therapy often pathologizes. Testosterone is not the enemy of emotion. It is the architect of a different emotional language, one written in protection, provision, and problem solving rather than verbal processing. Dr. John Gray. So, recent findings in Biological Psychology 2025 show testosterone modulates the HPA axis, which is the stress response system, to favor fight or flight over 10 to befriend, meaning men biologically default to action based stress management rather than social emotional processing. Couples therapy research in 2026 indicates that 73% of relationship conflict escalate when women expect immediate verbal emotional processing from men during high stress moments, directly contradicting male neurobiological stress response patterns. Interesting, all the same. That said, when you're stressed out or hurt, what does your body want to do? Talk it out or take action? Tell me more. Oh, wait, did I put that one up there?
No, you put the next one up.
I apologize. Let me back up. But maybe I went too far. Yes, let's do that one. When someone blocks your natural response by demanding conversation first, what happens to your stress levels and your ability to eventually connect emotionally?
Blocks your natural responses by demanding conversation first. Ooh, when that demanding conversation first, oh man, my temper goes through the roof immediately. It's like I'm trying. Let me. I'm taking in what just happened. Hold on. Wait a minute. You know. Um. Two. It starts to feel like an interrogation from a boss, than a peer, than someone I'm in relationship with, whichever kind of relationship that is, right? Um. So understanding that too, like, no, you gonna talk to me now? Is my mom talking to me, or my spouse, or whoever? You know what I mean? Um. And that creates even more stress. So now I don't have the ability to critically think before engaging.
Hmm.
So now you want me to fight where you're fully loaded, ready to shoot your ammo. And because I assume when people are like, no, we're gonna talk about this. See, you ready to talk about this. You've been thinking about this. Right. I'm coming in blind. I'm not finna come in here blinded. That's not how I fight. We need a game plan because what's the outcome that we're looking for? And so when and I'll listen to that initial, expression, because I'm trying to figure out what's the goal of the conversation that we're about to have. And my lack to respond immediately is me really trying to one, because I'm gonna be honest with you. I've been in too many situations to where I get the emotional spill, but I really don't know what's the scenario that this is coming from,
Mm.
because that probably wasn't expressed right away. So I really stepped back and I'm like, that's coming from where? What happened? What led to it? So I know what I'm addressing. Um, and I don't think I can express this enough, and I think this is going to come out a lot. I believe as men, we really need to know where this conversation is going. What is the goal of this conversation? Or we really don't understand how we're supposed to respond, because we're responding not to manipulate an outcome, but to get to the outcome. Now, there may be some out there trying to manipulate outcomes. I'm not going to even act like they don't exist. They exist on both sides, right? But so the goal is, so we're arguing about money because we need money, because we're hurting on money, because something didn't get paid, or just because we trying to spend money. Did you have plans? You wanted to go somewhere? Why are we arguing about this? Because if it's something we never argued about, then I just feel like it's a pointless conversation.
Mm.
There's a lot more that can flow
Oh
into
yeah.
that.
Oh yeah. You know, the first thing I hear when I hear this, I hear we need to talk. Like you said, it's almost like at that point, initiate shields. Like right, it is protective mode already come up. Like you're not looking to come to a resolution in that regard. That posture does not say we're looking to solve a problem. That posture says that we have a problem and you are the problem and I came to you to fix it. No, I'm sorry. You may have a problem with something I did or something I said or whatever the case may be. But the way that we come to the resolution of the problem is by recognizing that we both are participating in the problem. We are, one. We, us, me and you, not you versus me, anything of that nature. Well, when I have the you versus me posture, then that's going to automatically create tension because there's no version in that man that heard we need to talk as though we are together in this. No, we feel it like in that man's mind, we're opposition and I need to protect myself. So now when you say the thing that we need to talk about, it's automatically puts him on the defense. He's not trying to collaborate at that point. He's trying to protect. So why would you set the conditions for protection to be needed? That's the part that I would never understand. Like if I have a problem with you with something that you did or something that you said, oh, I said it right. If I have a problem with you in that moment, sure, let's have a conversation. Not that you are the problem, something you did is a concern. So now in that regard, I don't go to you like you're the problem. So understanding that we handle things differently. And I think there's enough information out there that has told us that in the past. The way that we deal with the kids, we deal with kids differently. The way that we deal with, things at work, we do those differently. Because you would hear us talking about it. If that was me, I would have did it like this. Yeah, I got it. But it wasn't you, it was her. Or it wasn't you, it was him. Right? We do that all the time. But those things serves as bits of information that tell us that we process and we respond to things in a manner that's more conducive to our makeup. Not that not that it is wrong, not that the difference itself is wrong, because the outcome ideally is the same. Ideally, the outcome is for the betterment of the relationship, not for the betterment of the individual. That's where, right? So when we say we're different, it's not because we're trying to be an individual. We're trying to talk about us being different because that's part of the whole. And when we recognize that that's part of the whole, it's not that the difference is more important. It's the whole itself is important. The problem is most of us never were taught that in the beginning. So when we weren't taught that the whole was the most important thing, not the individual differences, therefore now what we do is we idolize the differences as opposed to talking about how the difference participates with the whole. So when you come to me demanding, you're not behaving as though you're part of the whole. You're coming to me in an individualistic standpoint. And therefore, now I have to become an individual in order to protect myself and guard myself against the onslaught of somebody right now that is approaching me like an adversary.
And that's the part I don't. If anybody missed it earlier when you were talking about making me have to put up my defenses. Like, I don't want to, why am I defending myself at work or at home? Those are spaces where I should be in collaboration, not in defense, right? Why are we in opposition against each other when we're trying to walk the same path?
Right.
If we're on the same team working towards the same organizational goals, why are we fighting? Like, and I get frustrated as well. So I can't lie. And one of the things that really gets my nerves wrecked is when you're dwelling in the midst of individualism. Because especially like for me, I'm in a position to where my job causes me to have to worry about what everybody else is doing.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to make sure that the way it works from my output doesn't negatively affect one department or the other. And oftentimes, what you get is everybody wants their way, and it's like now I have to try to remember 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 processes for one organization so that I can do my job. That's crazy work. But because everybody's just trying to make their job easier, like why we're not? What is it? The organizational goal? What are we trying to accomplish? Let's get that. And if this is what we need to do to accomplish, everybody can't have their way. I can't do what everybody wants because I'll never do what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
And so people don't and that's what it feels like when we get into these spaces where I feel like I have to defend myself because I feel like I'm trying to figure out how we can work in cohesion, and the other party's trying to figure out how they can get what they want. And what do we want? Can we have that conversation?
Yeah.
And that's why I think is really a big split, especially with I would say as a young man in the family right now, in modern uh, development of men and women. I feel like that's where the fight is because a lot of women are coming to the party with this concept of how can I get what I want out of each scenario, and at least that's what we hear, right? And that's in complete opposition of how we were taught family works as from the male perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. You have to recognize whether or not what you're thinking, saying, and doing is it to the betterment of the whole, or is it just for the betterment of me? And if it's just for the betterment of me, then that's not a conversation that we need to have. That's a conversation that you need to have with yourself,
Mm.
simply because at the end of the day, why are you more focused on me when it's supposed to be a we? And so now, if you've had that conversation with self, and you say, okay, this is how I can have that conversation so it's better for we. Now, it's time for us to have a conversation. But a lot of times we have the conversation prematurely. And when it comes out, it sounds like a you focused conversation instead of a we focused conversation. And so, and just speaking for me, when I was in that space, hearing what she was saying and understanding what I'm responsible for doing, it's like, I got it. I can't create problems over here because what you're complaining about now will exacerbate if I create problems over here. Just like Gaddy said, well, you're a senior non-commissioned officer, you need to manage your own time, blah, 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 blah. So if you're absent here, that means you need to stay later in the afternoon. Which one do you want? You want me to eat lunch or you want me home by a certain time? It's like, and I don't necessarily need you to make that decision for me, right? I am well capable of making that decision because in my mind, what's better for the whole? The fact that I'm home in the evening at a decent time, as opposed to showing up for one child to eat lunch. You know what I'm saying? Those things, those dilemmas are real. They happen in real time in our head, and it's easy for us to determine. But when there's added pressure to make a decision that we've already made, now it becomes a problem within itself. So thank you for that. Let's see what other nuggets they're dropping over here. Atlas said keys are keys. I think it delays the ability to progressively come to a resolution. Absolutely. Absolutely. Given the fact that the resolution is conducive for the unit, not for one person. If it's conducive for one person, it's easy. The only thing you have to do is bend to that person's will, right? But if it's conducive for the unit, now we need to understand what's important for the unit. And sometimes we may need to move our ego out the way so that, the unit can actually thrive. Thank you for that. Yes.
If I can,
Sure.
conducive, but also expressed. Do we both understand what the desired resolution is?
That's good. That's good. Thank you for that. The next one she has is stress levels are heightened. Hinders Stress levels are heightened, hinders and hurts the ability to connect emotionally. Yes. When stress go when emotions goes up, cognition goes down. When cognition goes down, you're not even thinking about what it is you're thinking, what it is you're doing or saying. You're just reacting based upon what you believe is right in that particular moment. So absolutely. Robin says, shift from talk to connect. Instead of demanding a conversation, focus on simply being present without needing to fix or resolve something immediately. I love this. And I will add to it, if I may, if you would allow me to, Robin. Focus on simply being present without needing to fix or resolve something or someone, because it is not my responsibility to fix anyone. It is their responsibility. Only thing I do is focus on the greater good. So great. All right,
Do you think
Stephanie.
those two-
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
My bad. Do you think those two are specific?
Which one?
Right. Uh, resolving something and fixing someone. Do you think one party leans to trying to do one or the other more?
I think men are fixers.
Hmm.
I think men are fixers. I think in the beginning, we may believe, especially in our younger years, we may believe that we're trying to fix the other person until we learn that it's not our responsibility to fix the
Hmm.
person. Then we try to fix the situation.
Yeah.
But even in that, we also try to fix or resolve the issues that exist between us.
Between the
So
two.
as we get more mature, as we become more mature, and I'm speaking specifically about men because I can't speak for women. I would need some of the ladies in the comment section to answer that. When we move from understanding where and what we're supposed to fix, then we want to collaborate on the solution for resolving. So we want to bring, our partner into the fixing of the thing. And I think a lot of times that's where the struggle may be, because we may not necessarily see eye to eye on what the problem is. So, to your question, I think men are natural fixers. I think we're just wired to fix things. That's why a lot of times when you tell us what your issue is at work or whatever the case may be, who I need to go talk to, who I need to go put my hands on. You know what I'm saying? Nah, bro, she just talking to you. Just inhale, take it all in, and maybe ask her a question. So, what did you do? How did you fix it? How did you come to the solution? So yeah, I love that question. Though. Thank you for that. Stephanie said, but if you have the three C's, connection, communication, and commitment, there should not be any demands or high stress levels toward each other. I agree. If we have the three C's.
But I think the process to get into the three C's, there will be some high stress levels in between there, because this is a process, and this is why I think the speed in which we divorce nowadays and we separate nowadays, we don't go through the high stress level. We don't go through them. We have them, but
Mhm.
hear what I'm saying. We don't get through these high stress levels often enough so that we can develop that connection,
Yeah.
learn our communication habits with each other, and, because commitment. I guess what I'm saying is that third C is not there. I guess.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Um, so yeah, let's move on to the third point because man, time is not slowing down for us. Point number three, emotional regulation. Keep the scrolling question going, please. Um, Emotional regulation versus emotional suppression. Knowing the difference. Most men labeled emotionally unavailable are actually practicing healthy emotional regulation, which is a sophisticated psychological skill. But because it doesn't look like female emotional processing, it's misdiagnosed as pathological suppression. We've confused emotional expression with emotional experience. A man who cannot name his feelings immediately is not a man without feeling. He's a man whose brain needs time to translate experience into language. Terrence Real, family therapist. Emotional regulation is described as this: the ability to modulate emotional experience and expression based on context, which is a hallmark of pathological maturity and execution function. Different regulation strategies, such as cognitive appraisal, behavioral action, temporal delay, are equally valid when adaptively employing. That said, the question that I have for you, my friend, was there ever a time when you were deeply feeling something but needed time to process it before talking? I was going to wait till the second part.
Yeah, I couldn't get to the to the mute button quick enough. Was there a time? I think anytime I'm deeply feeling something, I need to go process it. Um, to be honest with you, I think the last thing I wanted to do was find somewhere to go talk about it.
Mhm.
Um, always told that the right thing to do is to go talk about it, find someone to go talk about it, or even if you got a therapist, go see your therapist, whatever the case may be. But I I want to make sure if I'm going to go see a professional, especially, and I get it, I know they know how to do their jobs. It's just the way my brain thinks.
Mhm.
I want to make sure I'm going in there not just doing word vomit on them and giving them, you know, expressing myself properly so we can come to good resolution skills of how I can, deal with it or get through it. Or even if it's talking to my friends or significant other, I'm even selective about that. Not every as, as a man, not every homeboy is the homeboy you call to express everything to, right? Some homeboys, because you may get what you need or you may not get what you need. You know what I
Indeed.
mean? You call Dwayne, you're gonna get conflict resolution skills, right? That ain't what I want right now. At this moment, if I'm in call, I'm trying to express. But if you call Roland, you're gonna get some jokes through it. And you're like, I may not need that. So you got to know you can't call everybody at every time. But Dwayne might have been who I needed to call because I might have needed to learn, get some logic in the midst of this emotion to help me regulate it. Or I may have needed to call Roland to make him say something stupid to make me laugh so that I I can learn, I can get off of the emotion of it and now begin to think of ways to deal with whatever the issue is that caused this high emotion. Um
Hmm.
yeah, oh, but you said what was happening internally
Yeah,
that
that's the
I
second part. Yeah, what was going on internally?
ooh man. So if that was happening internally goes, if I take that back to the point, let's say somebody's in my face saying, no, we're gonna talk about it now. What's going on internally? When you're talking about blood boiling, I mean, you could really feel the boil. You can feel the temperature going up, right? Because you're not allowing me to process this. So the first thing that going on is that stress. It's like all right, what's going on? What's the issue? What's the problem? How can I get out of this? Or how can I fix this so that this feeling is not here in this space no more? So it's just a lot going on in our heads. Like we're really playing out 36 different solutions in our head. I don't know if women know that, but we're playing out 36 scenarios of how this can play out. And wouldn't all right, let's bring it on in. Let me go somewhere and isolate more preferably so that I can come out of this with with a better action plan.
Yeah. Um, I got one. I recall when I knew in my mind that I needed, and I'm using that word intentionally. When I needed to file for divorce. Um, this was not a decision I made overnight. This was a decision that took me months to process. And what do I mean when I say it? And this kind of leans into Maya's question as well, or statement. What are some of the things that I'm processing? I'm doing a lot of if then scenarios. I'm also injecting the who's in the scenarios. I'm also I'm also injecting the consequences and the repercussions of making those decisions in that scenario. And so, what are some of the things I know that I'm going to have to deal with on the backside of the scenario? What are some of the things I'm going to posture myself to shoulder on the backside? So, it's a number of different things that I had to consider just to make this decision. But again, it was a decision that I knew that I needed to make. And even as I went through all of these different scenarios in my head about this decision that I made, these things that I came up with and that I concluded, the decision greatly outweighed the ramifications of these things. And so once I finally got to the point and reconciled with the decision that I knew I need to make. Now, mind you, the decision was made before I actioned on the decision. I want everybody to understand that. The decision was made before I actioned on the decision, but I was still slow to pull the trigger on the decision itself because I'm still looking at the pros and the cons. But then eventually I finally got to the point of making a decision. So to your point, I get what you're saying about an open-ended process, right? But I think the observer of the process believe that it's open-ended, not the user in the process. The user understands the process. Therefore, the process should be left to the user of said process, not the observer of the process. The observer has an opinion about said process. And I get it. But when we leave the user of the process to the process that they're trying to perfect, then we don't have to worry about whether it is an open-ended process, whether it's avoidance, whether it's emotionally unavailable, because I don't understand your process. I'm more focused on trying to get better at my process. And that's one of the biggest things I learned in the midst of all of this. I didn't, and in fact, to Gaddy's point, I even made a couple of phone calls, talked to a couple of brothers. I didn't call the brothers that I knew, like, hey, man, yeah, forget that, man. You need to go. No, I didn't call that brother. I called the brother, said, okay, let's sit down and talk about it then. Tell me where you are in your head right now. How did you get to that point? Did you sit down and try to have conversation? How did those these were the brothers I called. I didn't just call random Joe Blow off the block because I know Joe was just gonna side and tell me something that, you know, one of the worst pieces of advice you'll ever get, man. I just want you to be happy. People who tell you stuff like that, walk away, please. They have no idea what they're saying. Just walk away. But for a person to sit down and have honest conversation with you about where you are in that moment, how did you get there, so forth and so on, that's a different conversation. That's a conversation that makes you conduct metacognition in the midst of the conversation. In other words, they make you think about what you're thinking about. That brother, that sister, they're on your team because they really are making sure that when you make this decision, you are 100% aware of the decision that you make, the ramifications of this decision, who it's going to affect, so forth and so on. Man, you got that look on your face right now, bro.
I'm listening. Like I'm listening to you. I'm listening to you intently too, because you bringing out a lot of good stuff, a lot of things that I don't think as men we think to express it. Like that's a hard part about having this conversation as a man. A lot of the stuff that you're trying to pull out. I don't know if you see me a lot of times getting ready. Like it's a real thought process going on. Like as we're talking about the thought process, is happening because as men, this is not something we're taught to that is even okay to express. Like
Mhm.
we internalize this. We may talk about this behind closed doors as brothers, maybe, because we don't like to talk about too much emotion, but you're bringing out a lot of good points. So I just appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Absolutely. We're gonna skip the next question. I want to put up I'm gonna put up the poll though. And so I think the next poll is a good one. So when a man goes silent during conflict, what do you believe is most likely happening? He is avoiding a conflict, he is emotionally shutting down, he's processing before speaking, he's overwhelmed and needs space. Please provide your answers using the appropriate number, next to the answer that you want to provide. 1, for he's avoiding conflict. 2, he's emotionally shutting down. 3, he's processing before speaking. And then 4, he's overwhelmed and needs space. All right. That said, we're going to move on to talking point number 4, because I want to make sure I get to the last talking point before we get started. Talking point number 4 is all about the language barrier, action as an emotional expression. Men express emotions fluently through action, provision, protection, and problem solving. But because modern culture has defined emotional expression exclusively as verbal articulation, we've rendered gender's emotional language invisible and invalid. When he fixes your car, works late, or provides, or silently holds space for your pain, he's not avoiding emotion. He's speaking them in a language you've been taught to ignore. Dr. Gary Chapman. You guys know who Dr. Gary Chapman is? Dr. Gary Chapman is Mr. Love Languages. Come on now. A comprehensive 2025 studies of 5,200 couples found that men demonstrate emotional investment through acts of services at the tone of 84%. Quality time at the tone of 79%. Physical touch at the tone of 71%. Significantly more than words of affirmation, 43%. Yet, partners rated verbal expression as the only valid emotional communication, 67% of the time. Research in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships in 2026 shows that when women learn to recognize action-based emotional expression, relationship satisfaction increases by 47%, and perceptions of partners' emotional availability increase by 62% without any change in male behavior. Embodied cognition and emotional expression diversity. Emotions are not exclusively verbal phenomena. They are embodied experiences expressed through multiple channels, including behavior, action, and physical presence. No single expression modality is superior. They are contextually adaptive. So, that said, question is, can you remember or describe a time when you've done something for someone you care for that felt deeply emotional to you? Maybe fixing something, providing something, protecting them, whatever. But they didn't recognize it as an emotional expression. In
Yeah.
other words, they took it for granted. I'm just going to base it on they
Yeah.
took it for granted.
Yeah. I'm trying to dive because I had scenarios in my head, but I'm trying to dive past, you know, recents because recency biases are always always there. Um, and I know my answer is yes because that's really my personality. Like the people that are around me, especially if you're around me physically, like I like to do. Maybe because I don't know where that stems from. Not really trying to do a deep dive on my mental analysis, but but I would say something that a lot of people don't pay attention to now. Before I say this, remember that there's a big difference between me and Coach, right? He's from the South. I'm from the concrete jungle, and by saying I'm from the concrete jungle, just remember I didn't have nothing to mow because it wasn't nothing but concrete. All right, so putting that out there. Like we had you got trees, you got stuff. You know what I'm saying? But where we lived at, everything is concrete. Um, so when I first bought a house and had something to mow, right? That wasn't really mowing is not really my thing. I know how to mow. I joined the army in the early 2000s, right? I know that's not that long ago for some people, but we actually were the lawnmowers in the army. You know, one of the things as a young soldier you learn how to do landscaping. You learn how to do a lot. There's a lot of stuff that now they got contractors that do stuff now, but you know, different times. And so when I bought the house and I'm outside in the heat cutting that grass, my thought process, the reason why I bought this house, the reason why I took so much pride in it, and I was a lot more attentive to my property was because I bought this for my family. And everything that I did, everything I tried to fix, every bill that I paid, everything was about this was a step for me creating something that my family will always be able to say is theirs. That's what this was for. That's what I do this for. That's the that's the motivation behind everything I do. I wasn't doing this stuff because I want to seem hyper, me, Mr. Fix It. No, I'm Mr. Fix It because I need you. It's something in a man that is just different when you see me working hard for you, for the family. Like we love for y'all to see that. But we also love what we don't tell. The part we don't say is we love to look back at you after we do it because we want to see your we want to see that we did it for something. She proud of it. She like it. Yeah, go on, smile, girl. You know you like this. Come on, look at this grass. Look what Daddy did.
Can I interject real quick, man? I'm laughing because okay, y'all ain't gonna like me very much when I say this. I love y'all though. Them jar of pickles, we know y'all can open them doggone pickles.
We know.
We know that. I wanted to say, I'm glad he spoke up real quick. We know y'all can open them pickles, but listen, you bring us some pickles, you know what I'm saying? We game on. We know you. Okay, let me ask this right here. How would you have opened them pickles if we wasn't at the house? Inquiring minds would like to know. We know you can open them pickles, but we gonna open them pickles because you brought them. That's just it. Because we that's like, it's simple. We got it. And we know you doing it for us. We get that part too. But I'm just saying that kind of goes hand in hand with what he's talking about, man. I'm sorry. I ain't mean to interrupt him, man, but that's why I started laughing because I heard them pickles.
Now you on it. As soon as you said that, all I heard was you right. We do a lot of things that we know that they can do.
Mm-hmm.
I know you can fill up your own gas tank, but I like to go do that night so you ain't got to. I know you ain't too weak to push a lawnmower, but you better not push this one on this grass. You get what I'm saying? Like, I know you can, but don't mean that you should. And I think this is the difference. I think this is why these conversations really get frustrating. Can I just be 100%? Like, the reason why I get so frustrated personally with these conversations, because I believe when we do something, we're doing let me not say everything and not say we all the time, but we get into this space to where it's like I don't want to step on too many toes. I don't want he not be trying to be the nice guy. But sometimes you just gotta you gotta let us operate. I'm gonna say it that way. Because I know that you have in your mind what you want, but sometimes it causes us from deviating from what we know that we're supposed to do, and that plays a part. It works on us when that process is tampered with. I just say it that way. But I'm gonna keep it easy. I know you spilled some beans earlier, but I was like, nope. I'm gonna put.
But I got one more. Because we just kind of like surmised the last question is, down to being taken for granted. That's in essence what that question is all about. What does it do? What does it do to you internally when someone takes you for granted? Someone that you really care about. What does it do for you internally as a man?
It knocks the sails out my wind. I mean, the wind out my sails. Said that backwards. Because just what we're talking about, like my motivation to paying these bills is like now is different, right? My thing is I want my my kids to be able to have this house in the future, and if not this house, a house. If I have to drop this property, buy me another one, right? But I want something that my kids can inherit, right? So that's the reason why I'm doing it. There's not too much that I do just for the sake of having personal pleasure. Watching the Knicks beat the brakes off Atlanta last night, that was for personal pleasure. It has nothing to do with my kids, right? But I love that my sons like the Knicks, right? So that's the thing for us. But when you take it for granted, like it's almost as if everything that I did for you, I did for nothing. All this energy that I'm doing because my motivation is the whole. And we understand that women's motivation is not always, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that women don't care about family. I'm not saying that, but it's not always the same motivations as ours. We understand that. We're not necessarily mad at it. And we try to build a life so that both can exist, right? But at that same token, you can't when you knock me off my high horse when I'm trying to do something for you, when I'm trying to be special, when I'm just trying to take care of the family. I'm telling you, it knocks that you're moving with momentum. It knocks that momentum out, and then you sit there. That's the mental space that the mental darkness that men go to is that space right there where it's like I'm doing this for nothing. I'm I'm doing this for someone who don't even want the life I'm trying to provide for them. Or I'm doing it because that's what we think. If you're gonna make me leave work every day for lunch, and when I say make me, you know what I mean. Some women are good using that emotion on men because we don't know how to operate in that space, right? And that's why I'm careful having this conversation because not all women are ignorant to that fact. A lot of women know that men don't like to operate in that space of emotion, so they use that emotion. And some of us, to avoid the conflict or the stress that comes behind all that the emotions with us, we just bow out and do what you ask. But what that's going to do is going to jeopardize me being able to do what I'm supposed to do that takes care of the whole. Now, what am I doing this for? What is my motivation behind getting up and going to work, to making this money, to start to work in this business, to cutting the grass, to fixing this, to help whatever it is that I'm doing.
When you don't appreciate what I'm doing on the grand scale of the entirety of this unit, you don't appreciate who I am. When you don't appreciate who I am, I'm trying to figure out how did I end up here in the relationship with this person? Where did I miss the signs? Where did I miss the clues? They had to have been there. Could I have just overlooked them because I really liked the person and wasn't looking at the evidence that the person was giving me? See, I'm just, and I'm glad you say that this is not everybody, right? I think in the grand, and trust me, I already know that there are men who take women for granted as well. We're not saying that that's not the case, but I'm telling you what goes through the mind of a man when, his wife, significant other, whatever, takes them for granted. I think this applies across the board. I don't really care who it is. It could be parent, child, sibling, whatever. When you take a person for granted as it pertains to what it is that they're doing for you out of the kindness of their own heart, it's almost like you're taking them, like their whole being, for granted. When you take a whole person's being for granted, you're indirectly telling them, like, anybody can do this. I don't necessarily need you here. Anybody can do this. Oh, well, if that's the case, and I'm just being honest, if that's the case, then you should let that person go find anybody to do it, because that person is not for you, and that person is definitely not with you. And we need to understand the difference. And I think too many times, and again, I can only speak through the lens of what I know, not just based upon education wise, but also based upon experience. I think too many times that same fix it mindset that you sit there and juggle with is the same fix it mindset that we try to apply in a situation to fix what is going on between you and I to get back to where we were. Can I give you guys a hint real quick? Where you thought you were, you never were there. Where you thought you were, was a facade. It was an illusion. Where you currently are now, that you've gotten real comfortable with one another, this is the current reality. I'm not saying that it can't be fixed, but I'm saying it takes both parties to fix it, working together. So be careful. And I'm real conscious when it comes to this. Be careful when you get to the place of taking a person for granted, especially their presence. When you reduce a person's presence down to deed, you're saying that person is only as good as what they do. But when you nullify the deed that comes from the person, you're telling that person it don't matter what you do, your presence ain't welcome here. The minute you listen, Linda. The minute you recognize that, leave. Bye. Deuces. My mistake was it took me way too long to make a decision that I already made. That was my mistake. So
because you're a fix it.
I was trying to fix it.
That I have a. I don't want to. Time is not kind to us tonight. I'm
Can y'all give us 5 additional minutes tonight? Just 5? Can y'all if you can give us 5 additional minutes, put in the comment section, yes, please. If you can give us 5 additional minutes. But you're gonna take us 5 minutes to get them now. Go ahead, brother. Come here. Go ahead.
All right. So, how do you, a part of me starting to wonder? Can we really? What's the possibility of us actually understanding this about each other? Because I think the same thing is true with women in a sense too, right? Because I hate when I hear men responses to women. You know, I could hire someone to go to cook and clean. I could hire someone to do that. I can go
100% agree.
$30 and find someone
Yep.
to pull a trick for me. Like you're doing something to the identity of a woman when you say that too.
Absolutely.
And so I don't know if that's something that is just hard for us to understand about each other. We understand, like I understand how that affects a man when a woman does it, but in vice versa. So then it made me think, you know, is it a fair assertion that they'll truly understand it in real time in space when it's happening?
I think the only way that we can answer this question is if we ask Lisa to do a show on this in the next upcoming episode of The Voice of the Hearts of Women.
Won't he do it?
I think that's the only way we're gonna get the answer to the question. I'm agreeing with you though. And that's why I say it doesn't matter who you are. Like I think when you get to the point of taking a person for granted, you don't necessarily, you're not valuing that person. And then when you start taking their deeds for granted, what you're telling that person, not only do we not value you, we don't even respect your deeds anymore. That's a very dangerous space to be in. So it's so voice of reason. I know we're putting you on the spot, and I do apologize, but if you would be so kind, Brother Gaddy, I'm putting it on you, bro. Brother Gaddy would like for you to.
I'll take it.
All right. We're gonna move on. Listen, thank you guys for all your comments. And thank you guys for giving us an additional 5 minutes. We're gonna move on to point number 5. And point number 5 also is the beginning of our next poll. And I want you guys to take the poll as we get started into number 5, because I think number 5 is really good. Number 5 is all about using consciousness to transform reality, relational reality, the observer effect in relationship. The label emotional unavailability or emotional unavailable functions as a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm going to say again, the label emotionally unavailable functions as a self-fulfilling prophecy. By shifting your consciousness to recognize diverse emotional expression and taking responsibility for our interpretive frameworks, we literally change the neurochemical and relational reality we experience. What you seek is seeking you. The moment you change your perception is the moment you rewrite the chemistry of your relationship. Coming from my one of my most favorite people, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Groundbreaking research in 2025 in social cognitive and affective neuroscience demonstrates that when individuals consciously shift their interpretive framework about a partner's behavior, their own neural responses change within 21 days, including decreased amygdala reactivity, in other words, threat response, and increased ventral striatum activation, the section of your brain that is responsible for reward and connection. In 2026, a study on the Pygmalion effect in relationships shows that partners who expect emotional unavailability unconsciously create conditions that trigger withdrawal, interrogation, criticism, and impatience, while partners who expect emotional presence create safety that facilitates sharing. Expectations literally shape outcomes with 73% predictability accuracy. That said, in 2025, meta analysis of mindfulness based relationship interventions showed that increasing present moment awareness and suspending judgment reduces relationship conflict by 41% and increases perceived partner emotional availability by 54% without any change in your partner. Therefore, quantum consciousness theory plus neuroplasticity. Observation influences the observed. Quantum mechanics principle applied to social systems. Focused attention and interpretive frameworks literally restructure neural pathways, changing both subjective experience and behavioral responses. In other words, we co create our relational realities through consciousness. That said, and this right here, bro, initially is for you, but I want everybody to kind of give your thoughts on this. What would it mean if the same person who viewed you as emotionally unavailable now views you as emotionally different without their prescribed requirements of what they believe availability looks like?
Oh man, uh, the whole scope of relationship changes from the male perspective, at least, right? The assumption is there was a lot of maturity and change that took place in a person because the way that you view the other person sometimes talks about your maturity level, emotional maturity, right? Because we always talk about emotional maturity before we talk about unavailability, right? But I think one of the things about emotional intelligence is not just having the intelligence of knowing what you're, I think we use it uh, in weird ways, but it's not just understanding your emotions, but understanding how emotions work for the other person as well. Um, and 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 understanding how our behavior and what we say and do affect those emotions. But if that person that saw me as emotional unavailable actually begin to see me as emotionally different, I think their responses to my behavior changes, which then changes my ability to respond. They may find that I become more responsive.
Say that part again, what you just said.
Ooh, let me
If you
remember.
can, if you can remember,
If
I
I can
know.
remember, right? If they once they begin to understand that I'm emotionally different, then they actually give me an opportunity to respond because they will respond differently to my behavior. Now that you know that I'm emotionally different, you don't attack when I don't respond. You give me that time to process, and then you'll find that I am actually more responsive than I was. You will see me as I changed when I didn't necessarily change, but your change allowed growth in our relationship, or my change may have allowed your growth, which some we never know where the trickle effect comes from. That's why it's important that we continue to work on ourselves daily and grow daily. But I think it definitely your viewpoint of my of how I process my emotions will then give me the space to process my emotions.
Hmm. Here's why I like your response. um, because when you change your perception of me, how you see me changes. I say that part again. When you change your perception of me, how you see me changes. So a natural, because you have to realize the filter, right? You guys, and I'm going to say this because I want everybody to get it. The filter that I am using to observe you, whether it is perception, the information that you received of me, or perspective, the lens that you cast on me. When that filter changes, the information comes in, and that information does not automatically says the worst thing that you could have think of in the past. Oh, he didn't answer my phone call. That means that he must be doing something he ain't got no business doing. That's a perception flaw. But then on top of that, your perspective changes. It's not that, oh, you working late, you must not want to come home. It's like, no, you're doing that is working hard. That is trying to make sure that you have the life that you really want. So he is working hard, so you don't have to work as hard as he is working when you become his age. So everything about your partner changes. The way you talk about them, the way you see them, the way you consider them. So now you don't have to go through those things that we talked about in reframing the image of relationship, which we call the four horsemen, that makes it possible for us to predict divorce. There is no stonewalling, there is no contempt, there is no criticism, right? So those things don't exist. Why? Because your lens, your filter has now changed. When that filter changes, then it's not about how long it takes me to process it or my response after processing. It's you recognizing that me processing it, that's my process. Me answering it after my process, you appreciate the fact that I even thought enough to give an answer that considered something that I said or respond. Like, it burns me to my core when I ask a person a question and they do everything but answer the question. Well, when I view this person through this question, they don't really put forth any effort to not answer the question. In fact, when they respond, they make sure that they answer the question. And to ensure that they do, they may even ask a question on the backside. Did I answer your question? Because sometimes we try to talk ourselves into an understanding and may not necessarily realize that all of that, as you call it, word vomit earlier, didn't even answer the question. But did I answer your question? You said a lot, and I don't really think you answered the question. Okay, cool. Well, could you reframe the question so I can better understand the question and ensure that I answer the next? See, that is a healthy conversation. That's what a healthy conversation sounds like in the midst of seeking to gain understanding. And this kind of goes back to what we talked about in the beginning. I don't think most people seek to gain an understanding. I think most people seek to influence the other to adopt their understanding. Go ahead. I thought you were about to say something. I seen that finger come up. When that finger
No,
came
I was just saying, like, that's it right there.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it right there. I shouldn't be trying to change. Use that word. I shouldn't be trying to change you, and you shouldn't be trying to change me. And this is why these conversations that we have about relationships are so important. Because when we're talking about the infancy stages of relationship, that point where we're learning and we're understanding each other, you have to make a conscious decision of whether or not you can handle how that person. I say it like that, because our harsh reality is we jump into relationship with people and we think that we understand and we know, and they're telling us about themselves, and sometimes they're telling us the truth and we're just not hearing it. We're just happy that we caught us a baddie, so we ain't paying attention to that baddie's attitude. And now you mad talking about she crazy, she was this, she was it. Yeah, she was that before you jumped in that relationship too. You just, and she told you that too. A lot of times they tell her, because I jumped into a few of them, and I remember, and when they went crazy, I remember the moment they tried to tell me they were crazy, and I didn't hear it. I looked past it because they were so fine. So I thought, a couple of scratches ain't gonna hurt nobody, but I'm joking, but for real, can we handle that? Can we move into that space? Man, ooh, 8:35. I'm gonna hold my peace.
All right. So we're gonna allow you to express your piece real quick, because as always, this takes us to our bittersweet moment. And that said, is our final thought. And before we do it, I'm sorry. We're gonna bring the poll back up after we start final thoughts. But again, remember to answer the poll, okay? So that being said, final thoughts.
I think it would be a good idea. First off, let's do this right, man. Shout out to my brother. Appreciate you, bro, for this conversation and for always always allowing me to talk with you and feel like I belong on the same stage as the doctor, right? So I appreciate you. Now with that said, I think we do well if we took time to understand people, not just to know them, but to know how to coexist with them. Too often we operate in a space of what we think relationships should be versus allowing our relationship to meet the potential of what that relationship is supposed to be, right? Because when you input your view of what that relationship belongs, you just put that relationship in a prison. You're holding it captive of to its fullest potential, to its fullest to the world that it can experience, but it can't experience because it's being choked by this is what I want, this is what I want. Be the best version of you according to the word of the Most High, and encourage and pray for that partner so that they can be the best version of themselves. But the question I need to know is, can me and you exist? Not just do I understand and do I know you? Because I can know you and still can't exist with you. I know I can't exist with you. But by the time we get to that point, sometimes we're already 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, 15 years into marriages. So let's start thinking a little bit differently. Let's understand each other, let's get to know each other, let's see how we operate, how we tick. And if you know that you're not in the space to where you can allow where if I'm one of those people, I need you to respond right now. Take time. Maybe you shouldn't get in a relationship right now. Take your time. And if you are the type that I don't never need to express anything, and I don't never need some men are like that, right? Hey, bro, work on yourself. Let's grow. Let's get to a place to where we're healthy enough that we can have these conversations, to where we don't feel like we're being attacked when someone says, "Explain that to me." What are you trying to say? They're trying to gain clarity. Give them clarity. They're not attacking you. Like Doc said, it's a healthy conversation going forward. Let's let's learn healthy habits. Let's exercise healthy habits, and let's continue to grow personally. That's all I got.
Man, as always, Gaddy, I greatly appreciate your words, man. You are more than equipped. I keep telling you that, and I want to make sure I say it on stage. You are more than equipped to be exactly where you are, and it's an honor for me to share in conversation with you every week. Just like it's an honor for me to share in conversation with everybody in the comment section, people who join us on all different platforms. We greatly appreciate you being here. Um, this whole relationship conversation, man, it's one I'm very passionate about. For those of you who know me, because I think it's one of the areas in life that we get it wrong. We're very knowledgeable about a thing as it pertains to certain things, but in most cases, I don't think we know enough about the thing that we talk about to know that the things that we're talking about is actually not correct. That's part of one of the scariest realities that we can exist in. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's where people with limited knowledge or competence in a domain, they greatly overestimate their own knowledge or competence. Therefore, you don't know enough about a thing to know that you're wrong. It's dangerous. A lot of times we're talking about emotions and you're talking about feelings, or somebody else is talking about feelings and you're talking about those are not the same conversations. In most cases, a lot of us don't know the difference between emotions and feelings, nor do we know where they connect. But yet we talk about them to no ends when it comes down to relationships. I believe wholeheartedly in the space of relationship, it should not be a place of manipulation and getting what I need for me to survive. That's why I've always had the mindset. If a person comes to you and tell you this is what I need from you, that person should not be in a relationship with you. It's not about what you need. You should have done the necessary level of work on yourself before you interlace your life with somebody else. Because now what ends up happening is that you two must become a unit that works together, a a team that really works to elevate and accentuate one another constantly throughout the step in the course of your existence. So you don't use another person to make them make you feel good about yourself or vice versa. It's all about the both of us working together and we feel good because of the joint outcome that we are achieving. That's one of the struggles that I see as it comes to relationships. And again, I'm not trying to preach to anybody. If you believe that you're solid and your understanding of relationship, then stop listening to me. Because even that being said, whatever it is I'm saying can't penetrate what you believe. But if you're in the space where most mature people are and believe that I am constantly in a space of learning, I don't believe I know everything there is to know about everything, and I can learn something from anybody, then this conversation hopefully was beneficial to you. And again, that's all we aim to do is to help us become better collectively, culturally, so that we can actually be better across the board. So that said, I'm off my soapbox. Listen, um, greatly appreciate you guys. And you know, I like it. I like the fact that, we got some people that say that and their answer is absolutely. And I like the fact that somebody else believes that no, it's up to them. I get it. Either or. That's where you are in your belief. And that's what makes this whole relationship thing such an interesting dynamic. So that being said, listen, we greatly appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. If no one told you that this week, let me be the first to tell you now. You guys are awesome. We greatly appreciate you. We value your presence. We value everything that you add in this conversation. And continually, listen, tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, our community meeting. I have an announcement I'm going to make. So make sure that you're there. And we look forward to seeing you there. Until then, next week, same time, same place, the Hearts of Men podcast. Let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else. And we'll see you guys next week.